Hello, and welcome to the Hive Mind podcast, where the collective wisdom of the travel industry helps you match travelers with the right destinations and the right hotels. I'm your host, Whitney Schindler, founder and CEO of The Hive, a platform designed to give travel advisors organized, actionable insights they can put to work right away. Each week, I sit down for focused, real-world conversations with travel advisors, hoteliers, and supplier partners who know these places inside and out. We break down how each hotel is best suited to a specific client profile, take quick deep dives into destinations, and share pro tips to help you make the most of the Hive. And here's the best part. You don't need to take notes while you listen. Go about your day, tune in, and know that every insight from these conversations is already captured and organized inside the Hive, so it's there when you actually need it. And if you aren't on the Hive yet, you can get resources from this and other episodes when you join our newsletter at thehive.travel/podcast. Today, we have a new episode of The Essentials, a deep dive all about helping you not just understand a destination, but feel it, the energy, the vibe, and the nuance that make it unique. Trusted destination partners share key details that matter most and help paint an overall picture that will inspire you as you present the destination to clients. When you bring a destination to life with confidence and clarity, you build trust, you spark excitement, and you make it that much easier for your clients to say yes. Joining us today to talk about Tanzania is Melvin, the general manager of Truly Swahili and East Africa DMC. Let's dive in. Melvin, hello. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Whitney. I'm glad to be here. Super excited.
I'm very excited to talk about Tanzania. I was on a very long, extensive fam trip a few years ago in Tanzania. I think we were in destination for 16 days total. So we saw a lot and it was very long, but I'm excited to kind of get to dive into this with you a little bit. But let's start from scratch. So assuming that listeners know very little or don't know anything about Tanzania, can you share with me a little bit about how you kind of mentally break up the key areas of the destination that we could consider for a client who is visiting for the first time?
Sure. So Tanzania it's quite a big country, and every time anybody hears about Tanzania, they're always thinking wildlife, wildlife, wildlife. And of course, Tanzania is like the home of wildlife. But how we break it down is so you have two parts of wildlife. You've got the northern circuit and then the southern circuit. The northern circuit is more like you're into wildlife for the first time. You want to see the big five. You want to see the wildebeest migration. So that's the northern circuit. And then the southern circuit is more for off the beaten path, rare experience, but still wildlife. And then you have the other section where it is pretty much more of mountaineers, people that want to, get to the roof of Africa, or the roof of the world. That's Kilimanjaro. And then the other bit is the culture experiences or the culture immersions. And then the final bit is Zanzibar, of course. You're not going to come to Tanzania and not do Zanzibar. So Zanzibar, is the beach part that just crowns everything up.
So beach is a very specific, either that's what you're looking for or that's what you're not looking for. Kilimanjaro is even more specific. Not something that I randomly recommend to just anyone who says they want. Usually they come to me and say, we want to trek Kilimanjaro. And so then you mentioned Northern Circuit, Southern Circuit, and I think I'm forgetting one.
So Northern Circuit, Northern Circuit, Southern Circuit, and then the cultural immersion.
Okay.
So culture, basically just all things culture.
Got it. So are you saying that there's a circuit or an itinerary in Tanzania that would only be culture, or culture is just kind of woven in throughout these options if it's of interest?
Well, it depends. For most, it is woven in. And so every single other experience does add the element of culture. But then you could also do it on its own. Tanzania is home to over 120 tribes, different ways of baking, different ways of cooking.
So what areas are included on the Northern Circuit?
So the Northern Circuit is, of course, the famous Serengeti, the famous Ngorongoro, the Tarangire. So those are the, you also have Lake Manyara. So those are the four major parts of the northern circuit. And anybody coming to Tanzania, I would say probably 80 to 85% of those people coming to Tanzania, that's what they do.
Ngorongoro, Tarangire, Lake Manyara, which is kind of in between Ngorongoro and Tarangire, and then Serengeti. And Serengeti itself is gigantic. It's
Yes.
You have north, middle, and south. It's also a very, very large region. And you could do one stop according to the migration, but you could technically do two stops, like two totally different lodges that require an airplane to get one to the next in the Serengeti itself.
Yeah. So
So Serengeti's big. It's not just like a tick box of like, oh, we saw the Serengeti. It's really big.
indeed, it's actually whenever you're doing the Serengeti, depending on what time of the year you're coming, because you always follow the wild beast migration. The wild beast migration does that circular motion right from moving from Gorongoro into southern, central, western, northern, then into Masai Mara, which is part of the same ecosystem. So it depends on what time of the year you're coming. You could be central, you could be south, you could be west. And it's about 14,700 square kilometers, so it's as vast
Yes.
as possible.
So so you mentioned that 80 to 85% of first-time visitors to Tanzania are doing this northern circuit. What's included on the southern circuit?
So the southern circuit is off the beaten path. You have Ruaha National Park. You have Julius Nyerere, which used to be Silas at one point was Africa's biggest national park. You have Mikumi National Park. So things that are pretty much off the beaten path. So it's more so for those that have probably done safari and just want something a bit different.
Okay, perfect. Let's focus on the northern circuit for today, because
Sure.
even though that's just one of the options that you mentioned, it's huge, and there's still a lot of choice to kind of navigate the northern circuit. So Serengeti, Ngorongoro, and Tarangire. Let's start with Tarangire because I feel like it's closer to Arusha. It's going to be the beginning or the end of your trip, and it's a little bit smaller compared to Serengeti. So tell me about Tarangire.
Yeah. So Tarangire, actually, the other one that I didn't mention was Arusha, but uh, we'll focus on Tarangire. So Tarangire is elephant heaven. So for people that are looking for elephants, many people are always like, hey, I just want to see large herds of elephants. So Tarangire is that. Tarangire is just below Lake Manyara, just divided by a road. So it's one of those beautiful places where you'll be able to see ancient baobab trees, huge herds of elephants. It's got some other wildlife, but mostly you're looking for elephants. So elephant lovers, Tarangire is the place to be.
I'm just opening up a map now so that we can see where each of these places are located. There we go. Okay, so we've got Tanzania, and then Tarangire is here. You mentioned Arusha a little bit. Arusha is really important because that's primarily where most people are going to arrive.
Yes. So most people will fly into Kilimanjaro International Airport, which is about maybe 45 minutes away from Arusha. So it's more like the receiving center before it's the corridor to the northern circuit.
And so, if people are going to start at Tarangire National Park, because it's only 45 minutes, do you generally pick them up at the airport and just go directly to the first lodge at Tarangire, or do you have them overnight for any reason in Arusha?
So most times we want them to spend the night in Arusha because majority of flights do come after 2 p.m.
Okay.
And so you don't want to make that trek all the way. So we have them in a night in Arusha, spend a night, and then the next day they head out. Depending on how many days they have, we could decide to do Arusha National Park or just head out.
Okay, perfect. And then you mentioned the baobab trees and the big herds of elephants. Is there anything in Tarangire like from a wildlife perspective, that you will not see?
I mean, depending on what time of the year you come, a lot of if you come towards like the say after June, a lot of the wild beasts and all the herds have headed out north, and so you will miss a lot of the cats. You will miss a lot of the dogs. So you'll be mostly around buffaloes and elephants and birds. Of course, it's very good for birding too.
If you're in your first year as an advisor, chances are you felt that imposter syndrome creeping in. Every client call feels daunting, and sometimes you worry you don't know enough. That's why I created The Hive. It's your expertise vault, a living library of hotel details, destination insights, and advisor takeaways organized to help you build confidence faster. With The Hive, you'll be able to answer client questions with clarity, grow into the role of trusted expert more quickly, and focus on building the business you want. If this resonates, take a peek at thehive.travel to see what we're building. So let's talk about seasonality a little bit so that we don't forget that. So you mentioned that during certain seasons, the herds have left, which means the predators have left because the predators are following the herds.
Yeah.
So predators being the cats and the dogs, basically, and the herds being wildebeest and zebra. What for the northern circuit? I know that we can come to Tanzania at any time of the year, and I don't generally describe it as good or bad. I just describe it as a different experience. So can you kind of break down? So I'm glad you agree with that. Would you kind of break down the seasons and kind of what you can look forward to experience on the northern circuit and each of the different seasons, and what you should kind of think about when deciding when you want to come to Tanzania?
Yeah, sure. So with the Northern Circuit, the herds are the big deal. So that's the wild beast migration, and of course, thanks to every maybe Nat Geo and all these wildlife channels out there, they always highlight the wild beast migration. So everybody's coming to see the wild beast migration. And so the wild beast migration starts right around the calving season is always around January, February, and those are usually situated around the Ngorongoro area, and that's when calving happens. And so if you're going to go anywhere else apart from the Ngorongoro region or the southern region, which is in Ndutu area of the Serengeti, you'll miss out on the herd. So it makes January makes sense to come right within Ngorongoro region and the southern Serengeti, which is Ndutu area, and Tarangire then makes sense, and of course Lake Manyara and anything within that region.
Okay.
But of course, one of the things that I like to say is that the wild beast migration happens all year round. It's just they are at a different place at a different time. So you need to know where they are at what time so that you're able to head there.
So in January, February, it's calving. We have babies, and they're close to southern Serengeti and Ngorongoro area.
Yes, and then right around March, April, May, they move central and then begin to make their way western Serengeti. So that's May, April, March, April, May.
April, May.
Yes.
Okay, they're in the western Serengeti. Okay.
Central and western Serengeti.
Central and western. Okay. Okay.
Yes. Remember, this is 1.5 million wildebeest, and most times they're moving single file. So you can find you see them from as far as your eyes can see.
If someone is if someone's traveling in March, April, May, and they want to include the northern circuit, which is Ngorongoro and Serengeti, at this point you're flying likely from Ngorongoro to central and western Serengeti, or can you drive that distance?
Oh, you can drive. So Ngorongoro and Central are very close to each other. I think it's about 4 hours away or 3 hours.
But
so
Central and West, though, if they're on the west side, though, can you drive that distance?
If they're on the west side, yes, you still can drive.
Okay.
It will still be within 5 hours, maybe
Okay.
six, if it depends on if it's like the roads are if it's rainy season and the roads are like wet. But
Right.
you can be able to drive.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
only when they go out north that becomes a must to fly.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. So when are the herds moving to the north?
So right around June, mid-June, they begin to make that trek to the north, and they go up to Kogotende area and into Masai Mara. So you're looking at mid-June, July, August, and bits of September. They start to cross over to the Masai Mara and leave the Serengeti.
So if clients want to see the herds in the summer, do you still recommend northern Serengeti, or is there any time that you say, okay, actually being in Kenya and being in the Masai Mara might be better? Or can you always see wildlife and see the herds from the Tanzania side?
So much as Masai Mara and the Serengeti is part of the same ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
the problem with the two is that the Masai Mara is the 10th the size of the Serengeti. So it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to see wildlife in the Masai Mara because it's such a
It's so
small
small.
area. So the distances that you drive are not that big. But for Serengeti, the distances that you drive are quite vast and it's quite huge. So it makes sense for you to be sure of Tanzania. So usually after October, usually it makes more sense to be in Kenya. Though you will still have the wildebeest in northern Serengeti in October, in September, and even in November, you will still have them in the northern Serengeti. They'll still be crossing over because remember, they're single file. They move. They take their time. So
Yes.
you still find them in the Serengeti.
So it's not until October that you might actually say being in the Masai Mara might be better for that
Yeah.
short time period based on the herds.
Yes, but usually when you see what happens in October, it's almost as if half of them are still in Serengeti, and then the other half is in Masai Mara. So
Okay.
it's a perfect time for both,
Okay.
basically both places.
Perfect. And then at some point, to continue the big circle that they're making, they're leaving the Masai Mara, coming back into Tanzania, and then completing the circuit down to central Serengeti on the east. Is that where they're going?
Yes, so they come down from the Masai Mara, go through the Masai Mara, and then come down through the east. But like, so this would be getting into Ngorongoro, which is right within close to the to southern Serengeti.
I'm trying. Oh, okay. I found a map. So, I mean, there's a million maps if you just Google
No,
like
I know.
Serengeti migration map. Let's see if I'm just trying to find one that's kind of big enough that we can look at. Let's see. Try to make, oh, not like that. Okay. I think I found one that's pretty good. And because I think it's helpful to be able to visualize this.
Yeah.
Because the first time I was trying to learn about this, I was like basically studying this map, trying to understand. So I just found this on Google Images, but kind of what we're describing is you were talking about in January. So Ngorongoro crater's here down in the bottom right. So that's a different
Yes.
national park, but it borders the Serengeti. Um,
Yes.
January, February here is calving. And when babies are born and
Yes.
close to Ngorongoro, they move to central and west in the
Yep.
spring. Then you were mentioning June, July, August, September is when they're heading north to the Kenya border. And this is the Masai Mara up here, close to where it says
Yeah.
September. And then they start making their way back down to central Serengeti and close to Ngorongoro again in the fall.
Yes. And then the cycle repeats
And
again.
then the cycle repeats. Okay. Perfect. So we've got the Serengeti down. Going to the Serengeti, talk to me about the wildlife experience in the Serengeti, because in Tarangire, you mentioned we go here to see the big herds of elephants. When we go to the Serengeti, what types of wildlife experiences are most common and that clients can look forward to?
Okay. So the Serengeti, of course, the biggest thing about the Serengeti, of course, is the wild beast migration. But the wild beast migration brings with you the cats. It brings the entire big five. But the experience of the big five in the Serengeti is different from the rest. And that's one of the things, one of the, say, for example, the game drives you do in the Serengeti will be a full day game drive. So this means you leave the lodge early in the morning and then just drive. You take your lunch with you, and then you just pretty much track the animals. So you could be looking out for the cats, the dogs, you name it. And so
Yes.
you'll find the buffaloes, you find the elephants, you find the giraffes, you find the lions, the leopards, the cheetahs, depending on where you're going. So pretty much everything, but you have to really work for it. And so that's the idea about the Serengeti, is that you really need to work for whichever animal that you want to see, because they're now, as far
This space is
as
just so
can be.
big. It's just
Yes, it is.
so big. And I knew that, but I don't think that I really understood it until I was there. Um,
Yeah.
and so I think if you, just from my personal experience, if you compare safari in the Serengeti to safari in a different area, so it could be Tarangire, but it could also just be, in Southern Africa, for example. What I found is that in smaller areas and other destinations, there might be multiple lodges that have multiple vehicles that are all driving in a similar area. And
Yeah.
what this means is that you'd get a radio call that another vehicle found a leopard, and then we would get the coordinates or the location, and we would just zoom over and see the leopard. And so it was like a team approach to the
Yeah.
wildlife. Whereas in the
Yeah.
Serengeti, I don't know how your drivers and how all the lodges work, but my experience in the Serengeti was like, you're on your own. Like, go find the wildlife and good luck. So
Well,
it made it harder, but it also made it like that much more rewarding when we did find
yes.
some cool wildlife.
Yeah. Yes. Well, depends on what time of the year you come. So if you come right around, say for example, August, and every traveler is pretty much on the north, and so the Serengeti then becomes as small as just the northern area. So you're pretty much round around the Kokatende area, and they do the same. So they'll have radio calls, and different lodges will agree, hey, today we're going to go left, we're going to go right, we're going to go central. And then when we see something, they tag it and they let each other know, hey, there's 6 lions over here. I don't know how they can pass, because every time I do a safari, I'm always like, how do you even know when to turn left or when to turn right?
There's no
But
road
yeah,
signs in the Serengeti.
yeah, I don't know. I don't
There's
know
no
how they do it.
directions. So on that topic of no road signs and no directions, I also know from other safari destinations that there's a big difference between driving in a national park and driving in a private reserve, mostly being in national parks, you kind of need to stay on the roads. And so if wildlife crosses the road and you see it, but then it just continues walking into the trees, you can't follow it. You need to stay on the roads. Whereas in a private reserve, we have a little bit more flexibility, off roading, and we can just drive through the bushes and the trees, literally, to
Yes.
follow wildlife if it makes sense. So, what is what are the rules in Serengeti?
So that's, whenever you are in a national park or game reserve in Tanzania, you are only required to stay within the track. You're not allowed to go off track. Off track is you're severely fined if you go off track.
Okay.
But Tanzania also does have some private reserves or conservancies of sorts that
Mm-hmm.
are within the outsides of the Serengeti, especially, say, for example, the Grumeti. Grumeti is right between west northwestern Tanzania. And it's a very good area where you have these private reserves where you can actually, go off track. You can do night game drives.
Okay.
So in those areas, you're not constrained. to stay within the tracks.
Okay. Okay. So technically in the Serengeti, you could see all wildlife, but you are working pretty hard for it
Yes. But if
generally.
you're within the if you're within, depends also the time on the time of year. If you're coming during the calving season, that means the all the wildebeest are in one area. They're right there calving. The predators are all over them, and so your drives are short, and the animals are right there. But also in the peak season, that's in right around June, July, August. You're in the northern Serengeti, which is smaller, and so the drives are also not that long.
Okay.
If you're coming between the green seasons, that's
Mm-hmm.
where the problem is. That's where you have to do the long drives.
So I think that's when I was there.
Yeah, that
I
would
mean,
make
it's been a few
sense.
years, but I feel like I might have been there like in April, and like we were
Yes,
driving. We were driving a lot.
yes,
So that's really good to know, is that makes perfect sense. So January, February, when there's babies, they're not moving a ton because there's babies.
yes,
And then in the peak season, sorry to say, the summer, like June, July, August, this is the river crossing situation
yeah,
between Tanzania
yeah,
and Kenya, and they're all also kind of concentrated in that area a little bit more, so the drives are shorter. So
yes.
you explained the seasonality in terms of the migration. Talk to me about the seasonality in terms of weather.
All right, so we have two dry seasons and two wet seasons. So the wet seasons are divided into the short rains and the long rains. And so the short rains are usually November, December, January, and bits of February. And then right after end of February, once you get into March, April, May, you get into the long rains. And the long rains are the true African rain. They're the definition of rain. You
Okay.
just move 2 meters and you get soaked to your boots.
Okay.
And so that's the main rain season. And then you start the dry season that is usually that comes mid-May to June, July, August, September, and then November you start the short rains again.
Okay. So is there any time, according to the weather and according to the migration or according to any of these details, that you would say is really not the best time to come? Or is it all okay? It's just you need to know what you're getting into.
Yeah, I'd say it's all okay. You need to know what you're getting into. Though what we've seen with end of March, sorry, beginning of or beginning end of February, beginning of March,
Mm-hmm.
we tend to have, of the past 3 years, we've had very heavy rains, and these have caused a lot of havoc with the roads, and
Sure.
that's where the problem comes. So once the roads,
Yes.
like if a river break its banks, so
Mm-hmm.
the roads get, a bit impassable, and so you have to take longer routes to get to where you're
Okay.
going.
Okay.
That would be probably the only disadvantage, I would
So
say.
if I say clients want to come in April or May, it's you can come. The wildlife are still here, but just know that it might rain a lot. The roads, if it rains too much, the roads might be difficult. Um, Otherwise, as long as you understand that, you can still come.
Yeah, particularly end of February, beginning of maybe 2 weeks, uh, uh, the last 2 weeks of February and the first 2 weeks of March. Those would be the times when I would say the rain is going to be crazy.
Okay.
So one just needs to prepare themselves.
That's good to know. And then in terms of seasonality as it relates to weather and also as it relates to the migration, it also relates to cost. So what is high season and low season and shoulder season as it relates to the cost of the trip?
Yeah, sure. So high season is unfortunately January. Sorry, peak season is unfortunately January and February, which is
Okay.
different in Kenya. January and February is not peak season. So it's January and February, and then July, August, September.
Okay.
Those are the major peak season. Then
Okay.
shoulder, or what we call green, would be November and mid-December. But once you get into the festive season, that's considered to be high. It's not peak season, but it's high.
Perfect. So October, November is shoulder season or green season from terms of rates. The migration is coming back into the Serengeti and Tanzania and getting closer to Ngorongoro again. And it's the short rain season. Right?
No, that's November and December. That's what's considered the shoulder season. Yes.
Okay.
But it's half of November, half of December, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's just helpful to the first questions that I get from all clients who want to go on safari is, when should we go? How much is it going to cost? And how far in advance do we need to plan? So that's kind of what I'm aiming for. So I guess let's talk about that question of how far in advance you want to plan. So if clients are looking to travel in peak season, so festive, January, February, or July, August, September, how far in advance would you recommend getting started?
So I would say if you're planning to do July, August, and September, you need to be sure of the property that you're looking for 12 months. Because majority of the properties, especially in the northern, because a lot of the properties in the northern Serengeti are camps. They're luxury camps, but they are seasonal. They only open during the peak season.
Okay.
And they sell out 12 months in advance. Like right now, we're already selling next year's August. So those will sell out.
I mean, we're much more than 12 months in advance. We're more like 15 at this point. So getting started this early is important because for anyone who doesn't know, like I always describe this season in the Northern Serengeti as like the National Geographic photo of the wildebeest crossing the river with the crocodiles, like jumping up. Like this is because I think that people know, like if you've watched any sort of African documentary on Nat Geo, that's usually what you're seeing. And it's like, okay, now I understand why this is the busiest, why it's the most expensive, why it's booking, 12 to 15 to 18 months in advance. That's where and when this is happening.
Yes, because so the thing about the northern Serengeti is that you've got the Mara River, and so you've got the wildebeest crossing the Mara River. And I mean, it's not guaranteed, and that's what they call the dramatic river crossing, and that's what everybody comes to see. The predators lurking and waiting, and then jumping onto the wildebeest and devouring them. That's what everybody comes to see. Now. The problem is that the whole world descends
literally
pretty much around the same time. So if you want to pick your property, and it makes sense to pick your property and say, I want to stay in this property or I want to stay in this property. If you want to be able to pick your property, you need to have at least 12 months advance planning.
Okay. That's really good to know. What I think we should also mention is that you could have an incredible experience in Tanzania and in the Serengeti and not see this river crossing. Like,
oh yes.
I mean, I talk to clients a lot about, they say, well, when do you want to go? And then the first thing I talk about is like, is the river crossing a priority? Like, is this what you're envisioning? And if you don't see this, you'll come home disappointed. Or is like, yes, I understand that's cool, but that's not, we don't need to build the trip around it, because knowing that, I think, is going to steer the conversation one way or the other, understanding from a client if this is what they're envisioning or not.
This is 100% correct. The thing about especially the river crossing is that what most people don't understand, that these are wild animals. So what usually happens is that it's not a zoo. So they will go, all of them will go and sit at the riverbank and be as if they're crossing. They look like they're crossing. They smell like they're crossing. Everything points to them crossing. And then they don't cross for 2 weeks. And so
really?
So they just sit there, and we can't tell. We cannot tell when they will cross. It's just one needs to decide this is it. And then they just swoosh and begin to make the cross.
Do they sit there for 2 weeks? Like, is it like a fear or a hesitation of crossing because they understand the danger? Or like, do scientists or wildlife people understand, or it's just a question mark of like, we don't know why they do this. They'll cross eventually. Hopefully you'll be here when it happens.
I mean, the theories and hypotheses on why they cross, it seems like they kind of wait for the brave one to decide.
Okay.
And it could happen. Sometimes they just walk through, all of a sudden get to the banks and cross. No waiting, nothing. And then
Okay.
sometimes you have the guests at the lodge at 5 o'clock, and then you get everybody calling, "Oh, they're crossing, they're crossing!" And then all vehicles just zoom out to go and watch the crossing. So it's very hard to tell when that will happen. So we never promise river crossings ever.
No, for sure not. We never promise anything ever on safari, and I think
Yeah.
that's why safari is so cool, is because I have come home and for 2 weeks on safari, didn't see a leopard, did not see a
I
leopard.
know.
I have been on 4 safaris and I've never seen wild dogs
Oh, wow.
ever.
I know.
I don't know why ever. And the vehicle next to me at dinner saw wild dogs that day, but I didn't. So it's literally nothing is guaranteed.
I know. I was talking to some people recently, and I was telling them I've never seen an elephant. I mean, a leopard, and I always wanted to see a leopard. And then my son, I have a 9-year-old, he says, I want to do a safari. I want to do a safari. I've never been on a safari, and so I take him on a safari. I have been on safaris for the last 15 years of my life. I have done them night safari, day safari in Kenya, in Tanzania, everywhere. Never seen a leopard.
What?
And the one time this 9-year-old goes on safari, he sees more than 5 leopards.
Oh my goodness.
It's crazy.
Wait, are you
yeah.
saying in 15 years you never saw a leopard?
15 years. Like, I would see it on Nat Geo, but for some reason, every
Oh my
safari I went
gosh.
to, I never saw a leopard. And my team always wanted, it's like, Melvin, we've seen a leopard. We want you to see a leopard.
Wow.
I'd never seen it until that time.
So I think this is a really good topic to discuss, because I mean, I have not been going on safari for 15 years, but there's no guarantees ever. And I think that it's really important to talk about this with the client, and also to understand, is there something that you're really excited to see? Because sometimes there might be a lodge that sees leopards or sees cheetahs a little bit more frequently than other lodges. And so if we know that you're really eager to see a cheetah, that might actually help us pick the lodge that will just increase chances. Still no promises, right?
This is very true. And one of the things we do with agents is that we're always asking that same question, and that determines where we will place them in terms of their accommodation. And so that's the same reason. If somebody's not interested in seeing elephants, we'll never take them to Tarangire. If somebody's interested in seeing lions, there are areas in Ngorongoro Serengeti where you're guaranteed lions, or cheetahs, or leopards. So you just be able to know what they need and take them to that property. And it could be on a game drive, or it could just be during their leisure time, and they're sitting right there, and right before them in the water hose is a leopard, drinking some water. It's amazing.
I was at one lodge in Tanzania, and the lodge and our guide did not tell us what was going on, but they were kind of rushing us to finish breakfast and get out of there. And I was like, okay, coffee's important, y'all, And so we get in the vehicle and we exit the gate of the lodge. And I'm not joking. It's 10 feet outside where we were just sleeping, a pride of lions, 15 lions, all sitting on the rocks. And all of us were just this is incredible. And also, could they have eaten us? Because this is right next to our tent. And they're like, well, yeah, technically, that's why we didn't make a big deal out of it. So it can literally, we were barely in the vehicle and there they were. And then there were other days that we were driving for hours, and we didn't see anything. Nothing.
Yeah, I know it's strange. Different times, different lucks. I've seen many animals that many of my colleagues have not seen. I've seen moments of predator attacks and all sorts of things, Nat Geo worthy footage. But leopards, once. Just one time in my life.
Wow. So sometimes I ask people if there's any wildlife that they're really excited to see. And if you haven't been on safari before, sometimes it's hard to say like, yes, I really want to see this. And so I don't get very good answers to that question. So I try to flip it around sometimes and say, if you came home and you hadn't seen fill in the blank, would you be disappointed? And so then for me, it's
Nice.
like, oh, I would be really disappointed if I hadn't seen elephants or leopards. Like those are for like
Nice.
me, like personally my favorites. And so that's just like a little tip that like sometimes it helps to kind of like pull things out of clients when they're
Ah,
just not really sure how to answer the question.
I'm
Um,
going to use that one.
please. And like, I know that that's helpful for you because when a client says like, I would be really disappointed if we didn't see cheetahs, then I can come to you as a DMC and say, listen, this is their first time in Tanzania and like they're really want to prioritize cheetahs. So like, is there a lodge or is there a location or is there a park that we can really try to work into this itinerary to enhance or increase the probability of seeing a cheetah?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that's very instrumental is the guide. And I hear sometimes people coming for safari, they're like, hey, we don't need a guide. The guide pretty much makes or breaks the trip.
100%.
And so the guides tend to know. If you walk up to the guides, I remember we had a client who really wanted to see cheetahs. They've seen them before. They've done their safari in Botswana, that done part of the Southern African circuit, and they'd seen quite a number of cheetahs, but they really wanted to see a cheetah. And they told us, you know what, scratch everything else. If I don't see a cheetah, this trip is not is it. I'll consider it not my best trip. And
Mm-hmm.
so what we did is we spoke to the guides months before they came, and of course you would wonder why would you plan months before. What we did is that we the guides were very strategic in telling us, okay, this time of year, we've seen the cheetahs move towards this area because that's what usually happens. It's also the certain time of years. Say, for example, the cheetahs tend to hunt by themselves, so they're pretty much lonely. They're not like the
Mm-hmm.
lions that do,
Right.
prides and things like that. And so, but they also are sort of like relatives, and they name the cheetahs. They know this is Jackson, this is Jerry. I don't know how they can tell who's
And they
Jackson and
know.
who's Jerry,
Wow.
and they know. And so the guide was very instrumental. And majority of our guides are over 20 years experience. And so they say, okay, fine, this properties, have them stay in this property and this property. And that's what we did. And on their drive to the property, lo and behold, they found a cheetah hunting. It caught the animal, and they just sat there and watched it for a whole hour.
Wow.
Beautiful, beautiful.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, lots of things that we can do together with lodges, guides, partners on the ground, if we can kind of pull out those details from clients and share them with
Yes.
you. Still no guarantees, but the more information, the better. In this business, consistency is what builds trust. Clients return and refer because they know they'll receive the same thoughtful, professional experience every time. That's what the Hive delivers. It's your expertise vault, capturing and organizing hotel details, destination insights, and advisor knowledge so you always have the right information at your fingertips. Whether you're new, scaling, or leading a team, the Hive helps you deliver smarter, more consistent client experiences that set you apart. Learn more anytime at thehive.travel. Okay, tell me about Ngorongoro and how this experience differs from Tarangire and Serengeti.
Right. So Ngorongoro, of course, a beauty about Ngorongoro is the crater. And so you've got the rim of the crater, which is the top, and then you drive down to the base of of the crater, and there's a small water body right there, and all the animals are there. And I'd say this, I know many times you hear Ngorongoro being termed as the eighth wonder of the natural world. It is one of the few places on Earth where you are guaranteed the big five all in one setting. Because it's not such a big area, it's a small area. So once you drive down, you're going to see the big five. You will see the leopard, you will see the buffalo, you will see the elephant, you will see the lion, like basically you're guaranteed to see them. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the beauty about Ngorongoro. It's not so much big drives, it's short drives in
Yep.
a small area, but it's absolutely beautiful, right? Driving from the rim or standing in the rim and seeing that vast caldera, it's absolutely beautiful. Just the greenery, the views are absolutely insane. But then as you make it down to the bottom, to the floor of the crater, that's when the real wildlife begins. And so you've got the wildebeest there, you've got the big five there, you've got the zebras and everything else. It's absolutely beautiful.
So before I went to Tanzania, not a lot, but a good number of people told me that I was going to hate the Ngorongoro crater and that it feels like Disneyland. And I was like, oh gosh, like,
Okay.
okay. And I was also told this about Venice before I went to Venice in Italy for the very first time. Like, you're going to hate it. Yuck. It's gross. We hated our time there. And again, I was like, okay, it's a really weird thing to say to someone right
I
before their
know.
trip. I went to Venice and loved it. It's one of my favorite parts of Italy. And I went to the Ngorongoro crater and I loved it. So I'm not
Nice.
sure like why I can understand that the crater, it has limited entrances. And so you
Yeah.
have to get up early. You have to, like, when you're going into the caldera and going into the area, there's probably a lot of other vehicles around. So you might
Yes.
feel like you're waiting in line a little bit. But once you're in the crater, what I understood, and is like a stark contrast to the Serengeti, right? Like, we were
Yes.
just talking about the Serengeti being how, like, you have to work really hard to see wildlife. Whereas in the crater, the game that you play is how many different species of wildlife can you get in one photo? Because it's
Yes.
so
Yes.
concentrated. So you can just take one photo and count like 5 or 6 different animals, which would never happen in the Serengeti.
This is so true, and you see that the moment you make that drive down and begin to get into the floor of the crater, it's unbelievable. You turn left, you have maybe some of the dogs, the hyenas. You turn right, the buffalo's right there, and then you've
Mm-hmm.
just seen a lion. Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
So
it's cool.
whoever went and had that experience, I would like to understand if they went to
Honestly,
Ngorongoro.
Melvin has follow-up questions.
A lot of follow-up questions.
Okay, so arrive into Arusha, Tarangire, Ngorongoro, Serengeti. This is the Northern Circuit. What's kind of the minimum number of days that someone needs in Tanzania to really include all of these stops?
So I'd say 8 to 12 days,
Okay.
8 to 12 nights.
Yes,
You want to be able to do a minimum of 2 nights in every
per
place.
stop.
Two,
And
that's all, minimum.
if you only do 2 nights per stop, that's very, very fast paced.
I
Like,
mean,
you're moving a lot. You're packing and unpacking your bags and kind of moving around a lot. So it's possible, but I
yeah.
don't think
Well,
so.
if you do one night, that's where the problem is. But if you do 2 nights, on the third day is when you move to the next place. And
Mm-hmm.
so, the one thing that I always like to tell travelers is sometimes you get so excited about safari and you want to come and do 4 nights, 5 nights. If you're going to do 4 nights or 5 nights, you better be staying in a property that is worthy of that time, because you after a few drives, you will be the days when you're tired of seeing lions, when the guide is like, hey, lion, and nobody looks there, and everybody's just like, I've seen enough. I
Um,
don't want to see a single lion.
this is
Um,
100% true. And it's not so Serengeti's a little bit different because it is so big and it is so vast. But whenever someone tells me, like, I would be disappointed if I came home and I didn't see lions, I'd be like, you're going to be sick of lions by the time you come home. Like,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
everywhere. And so, but it's actually the other animals that are not necessarily, I don't like to guarantee anything, but like, I have been on many
Yeah.
safaris where I'm just like, keep driving. We don't need to stop and look at a sleeping lion again. He's sleeping. Just keep it moving.
So true. Yeah, so it depends. So the 2 nights, for what I've seen from experience, 2 nights is perfect. Three is
Okay.
great. Again,
Yes.
you wanna map it with the property. If you're going for budget, you don't want to do 3 nights in one place.
Correct.
If you're going for a high end, please do 3 nights because you want to be able to experience the
The
property. And some
lodge.
of these
Yeah.
properties are absolutely beautiful. The lodge,
Yes.
the views, pretty much insane. So you want to be able to know if you want to do budget, stick to two because the property is not going to be all that. You're going to be doing a lot of drives and you'll get tired of the drives.
Yep.
And so you don't want to, say today I don't want to go for game drive. I want to stay back in the property and it's just a tent.
Yes, exactly. No, I totally agree. Keep it moving if you're on a budget trip, and if you're on a luxury trip, maybe slow it down a little bit and actually enjoy the lodge because the lodges are incredible. I have been very sad leaving some luxury lodges. They're really beautiful.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
I
Amazing.
know. Yeah, so 8 nights to 12 nights, perfect time
For the Northern Circuit is a
for the
good
Northern
place.
Circuit.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. I'm just looking through questions here. I think the only thing that we haven't discussed is kind of how and where the cultural components can be woven in to the Northern Circuit if there's interest. So if somebody says like, yes, we're coming for safari, and also we're very interested in kind of these cultural touch points, where in the Northern Circuit can you weave that in, and what exactly does it look like in terms of
Okay.
experiences?
So the beginning would definitely be Arusha. There's a lot in Arusha, but Arusha more outward Arusha. So that means you're moving towards Moshi. There's a lot of Maasai areas right there. And I want to say this about the Maasai and the cultural experience with Maasai. I think it's been commercialized a lot. So Maasai are this primordial tribe that have been in existence for centuries. And they're known to, they used to hunt lions as a rite of passage. They're warriors. And so they come with a lot of, history and things like that. And everybody wants to see the Maasai. But this has been commercialized so much in Tanzania, and it's crazy these days. Sometimes it's disappointing to see. And so you want a more authentic experiences. So Tanzania is home to over 120 tribes. This is over 120 languages, 100 ways of baking, 100 ways of cooking. And so right from, if you move from Arusha and going to Lake Manyara, so somewhere between Lake Manyara and Ngorongoro, the Karatu area, you have what they call Mtuaumbu. Mtuaumbu is directly translated as the land of the mosquito. And I know probably not the best name. But it has absolutely nothing to do with malaria. I need to put that disclaimer out there. But this area has a lot of tribes. It has over 100 tribes that live in that same area. And so you get people doing rice beer, you get people doing different types of plantations, and just so much to see. From the moment you get in, you go and try different cuisines, different meals prepared in different ways. And so you can do a little biking safaris of sorts. As you bike, you get to see zebras, giraffes, none of the deadly animals, of course, when you're doing the biking safari. Because most times when you say biking safari, people are always wondering, how fast do I need to pedal before the lions catch up? So it's in an area that's not so, it doesn't have any of the deadly animals. It just has the zebras, the giraffes, and we pair you with a guide, and then you pedal with a bike, and then just go and meet these different communities. And they love guests. The moment they see you, they're always rushing, asking you questions, and you answer their questions, and then go into their homes and get to experience a real Tanzanian home. And that's the thing we always tell people: when you come to Tanzania, you're experiencing these great properties, absolutely beautiful, and then you experience this wildlife and the greenery and all that, but you don't get to experience the Tanzanian or the true Swahili person. So those cultural immersions allow you to get into the culture space. And these are what stay in people's minds long beyond after the trip. They remember a Jeffrey they met in a small hut in the middle of nowhere and had a beautiful coconut fish cuisine right in their home. So those are some of the experiences, and they're mostly cultural, where you get to understand the culture, what they do, how they get married, the stories of their marriages, the dowry, and all these things are absolutely out of this world. And it's good to experience it firsthand.
So is this mostly around Arusha where this is happening, or are there other areas in Tanzania that we can kind of have safari, but also have a little bit of this cultural experience as well? Where is this usually happening?
So Mtombo is the biggest part, and Mtombo is between Lake Manyara, Tarangire, and Ngorongoro. So
Gotcha.
It's pretty much en route.
Okay, perfect. No, that makes perfect sense. That's super interesting and is not something that I got to experience on my first time in Tanzania, as it was mostly safari focused, which means I just have to come back.
Yes, you do.
Melvin, this was fascinating and super, super interesting. I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of give us the lowdown. And this is only a fraction of Tanzania, because we really just discussed the Northern Circuit. And we didn't really discuss any of the other, because Tanzania is really quite large. But maybe at a different time, we can dive into some of those other areas that you mentioned right at the very beginning.
Yeah, sure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed my time here.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Hive Mind podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And if you know a friend or colleague who would enjoy this, please share it with them. If you would like insights from this episode landing in your inbox each week, join our newsletter at thehive.travel/podcast. And remember, if you'd like to contribute to a future episode, whether it's sharing your destination expertise or your experience touring hotels, just head to thehive.travel/podcast to learn more and express your interest. We'd love to have you join the conversation. Until next time.